big hello and a very warm welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow with me, Sonali Krishna. We have entered lockdown 4, but this has come with relaxations, and now it's up to the states to customize the centre's directive according to the situation on ground. Unfortunately, restaurants, which is possibly the worst hit sector along with aviation and tourism, has got no relaxation, and restaurants will continue to remain closed. What are the implications, current on-ground realities, and the new normal in the restaurant business? To discuss that, I'm joined by Anurag Katriar, President, National Restaurant Association of India, Dheeraj Gupta, CEO, Jumboking, and Thomas, who's the owner of Mahabelly chain of restaurants. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us right here on Leaders of Tomorrow. Let me pose the first question to you, Anurag. What has been the impact over the last 2 months or so where all restaurants have been grounded? What has been the kind of job loss we've seen? We have several figures that have been floating around in the media. And how many restaurants have had to completely shut shop because it was just not viable to remain afloat?
Thank you, Sonali. So to begin my answer, let me tell you the size of this business first. If you look at the annual size, it's almost 4,25,000 crores. And that's a very, very massive number. That's roughly about 35,000 rupees a month. And now if you're talking about 2 months of closure, it's 70,000 crores, already down. And let's not mistake, will probably be one of the last sectors to open up because of various reasons. So while the losses are massive, the other problem is the cash flow. You know, we are not a very cash-rich business, so to say. We have limited cash reserves, and we have not got any financial assistance per se from the government. So all our cash reserves currently are going towards taking care of the employee needs. However, having said that, that is not adequate. That is not adequate. So it's a very natural corollary. If businesses are failing, there will be job losses. And I think there is no data per se right now. My personal assessment would be maybe something around 30% of the small and medium-sized restaurants may never open up. The large restaurant chains may be compelled to shut down a few restaurants from their portfolio. And with all these things shutting down, I think the resultant job loss could also be close to 30%. And that translates to over 2 million people, considering we give direct employment to 7.3 million in this industry. Wow. So these are the broad numbers. It's not a very happy number to talk about, but this is the stark reality of the trade today.
Right. And what's the kind of messaging you're getting from the government? Of course, the restaurant business is a backbencher and is not going to be looked at with any urgency by the government. But having said that, I know that, before the new directives for lockdown 4 came out, I know that there was effort made in terms of having some discussion and dialogue with the government to ensure there is some relaxation of sorts. Though, what were those demands really, or what were those requests, and what's been the outcome of it?
So let me first clarify that as far as reopening of restaurants are concerned, we rather leave it to the good counsel of the domain experts who are looking at the health issues. We may have the desire to open tomorrow, but if it is not safe, we rather stay put. What we had sought from the government in the meanwhile was what I call a bit of a ventilator support to make sure that we remain afloat. And let me clarify here, because there's lots of misnomer about what we asked for. What we have primarily asked for was policy support,
sure,
and maybe combined with little bit of liquidity support. We are not seeking any dole from the government. I will quickly reel out the 5 basic pillars of our demands with the government right now. Number 1,
sure,
we said, please use the coffers of the ESIC, a fund which is built by the contribution of our employees and us, to make sure that certain parts of payments to the employees covered under the Act is made from here. That is the sole purpose of this fund. Number 2 was, please declare this pandemic as an event of force majeure, as was done in the case of real estate by the Honorable Finance Minister in her series of press interactions last week. do that so that the pressure of paying dead rent while we are shut is not there. Now, going forward, what we were seeking was some liquidity support in terms of working capitals. Because if we have exhausted our resources currently, how do we restart our business? We have mostly perishables as our inventory. We need money to buy fresh inventory. We will need to deploy a lot of money to comply with the new hygiene norms.
Sure. If I could now take it to Dheeraj and get your views on what's happened at Jumboking, what is the fate of the people that you employ, and how do you envisage, your reopening along with others? How do you envisage it, and when do you envisage it? Because there is really no clarity at the moment. There have been some countries where we've seen they have reopened, and of course it is 20% or 25% of their total capacity. And are you looking at delivery? Are you looking at more innovative ways of ensuring that the business is somehow kept afloat?
Of course, when we reopen, getting the staff to man the stores is going to be a single challenge, at least for the first quarter post-opening. Delivery, is a part of the business, is a very, very small part, where I think most restaurants anyway, because the discounts that have to be passed on or the commissions which have to get paid to the delivery partners, there's no way that the business can survive purely on delivery. For most of the people in the restaurant business, it is something that we do, which is as an additional service or as a marketing activity. So for the business to really come back, we will need people coming back into the market and for food. And our business is also, of course, our foods are perishable, as Anurag said, but our business is also perishable, because once the day is gone, it's like I can postpone the purchase of a television to the next quarter and somehow look at making up the lost revenue for the current quarter. But once the day is gone, the revenue is gone. The person is not going to have a double meal in the next month. India, the market is very resilient, and we do hope that we will get the recognition that the restaurant business deserves.
That's very optimistic of you, Dheeraj. But let me take it to Thomas. What is your view in terms of how you envisage the future? What's the new normal according to you? We've seen case studies from a few countries. We are a unique country. How are you looking at labor challenges in the future? Ensuring social distancing in the future, because finally going out to a restaurant is to socialize. So going with the whole social distancing diktat coming in, the whole point of socializing is getting a bit awkward. So this whole restaurant business, from a consumer standpoint, for them to have the confidence to come back is also going to be a mega tough challenge for you.
Right. Thanks, Sonali. I'm glad you brought this up, because this is also a point that is often missed in the entire restaurant business narrative. That there's been a lot of emphasis placed on safety and hygiene protocols, but we are not asking the question as to why do people eat out in the first place. So it is a very deeply social exercise. So if you start hacking away at the social aspects of eating out, which make it special as it is, which is human, unfortunately or fortunately, is very, very dependent on human interaction. It is humans who are cooking your food with a certain degree of love and care. It is servers who are, at your side, helping you and guiding you through that entire experience.
Right. On one hand, you have this kind of fear psychosis within customers. Almost everybody's revenue has come down significantly, whether you're salaried or you're a migrant labor or whatever class you belong to. All classes of Indians have suffered a revenue loss. So we have lesser money in our pockets. Plus you have the fact that even if you do reopen, you will be only reopening with a 25% or at 30% capacity. Does it really make sense to beat the restaurant business anymore then?
Nothing, the normal rules don't apply anymore. So there are quite a few things that are going to have to change from a business standpoint. Like, for example, restaurants pay incredibly large amounts of money as rent in most of these high street locations, be it whether you're inside a mall or you're inside a posh market or anywhere. Real estate contributes a very, very high percentage of the cost of operations for a restaurant. So today, we will have to revisit those relationships and renegotiate those contracts to kind of make it more viable for the restaurant to exist. See, today profits are not a concern. Like that's not what we're trying to do today. We just want to survive, and surviving means meeting those bare minimum costs. So unless we're able to, on the business side, renegotiate our relationship with these developers, these landlords, or whoever it is that whose properties that we're operating out of, they will need to partner with us in this exercise, because it's not a static. Restaurants don't exist in a vacuum in that sense, right? There's a huge mechanism that makes it happen. We'll have to figure out how can we even move fresh food, fruits, vegetables, supplies, meat, poultry. These are all very, very intrinsic aspects that contribute to how a restaurant works, and we don't have the answers to all of that yet. So to answer your question, there are just too many balls in the air right now to even predict what are the different kinds of scenarios that could play. We're getting an increasingly dark view of it so far. So it's not looking good. But again, this is in our lives as restaurateurs, this is one more challenge. I mean, I guess we'll only have to figure this out as we go forward. As it stands today, it's looking really, really bad.
Does it really make sense to be the restaurant business anymore then?
Restaurants don't exist in a vacuum in that sense, right? There's a huge mechanism that makes it happen. We'll have to figure out how can we even move fresh food, fruits, vegetables, supplies, meat, poultry. These are all very, very intrinsic aspects that contribute to how a restaurant works, and we don't have the answers to all of that yet.
Anurag, your perspective on this?
So very simply put, yes, we are going through one of the most challenging times as restaurateurs. And one thing is very certain, that business in the post-COVID era cannot be conducted on older terms of engagement between every stakeholder in the ecosystem. And if anybody, whether it is an employee, a landlord, an aggregator, doesn't come on board with the singular thought of saving the industry, then businesses will fail and nobody will survive that. It's not like a mall owner can flourish if the businesses fail. Obviously not. It's not like, you can see what is happening with aggregators. With delivery business going down, you have job losses in both big aggregating companies, Zomato and Swiggy. And I don't blame them. It's a harsh reality. If there is no business, there is not going to be employment. It's a given. So yeah, it is very tough time, but I would still feel that with a little bit of policy support from the government and equal participation and honest participation by all stakeholders, we can still survive and probably live to, thrive some other day.
Right. Dheeraj, taking a cue from what Anurag has said, as the CEO of Jumboking, 30 to 40% occupancy, and let's say you restart with that. Does it make sense in terms of your business model to continue having Jumboking, or is it better to pivot Jumboking into aligned businesses?
So Sonali, I'll answer your question slightly differently. We are in the takeaway business, so we don't really have seating inside our stores. However, I think in the past, it's like when, I'm reminded of the times when demonetization had happened and people thought that digital currencies are going to take over and, cash is going to completely get wiped out, which was, what everybody was speaking at that point of time. But then now when you project we're in 2020, people have adapted while the digital transactions have gone up, but the cash circulation is back to normal and, people are transacting in ways in which they're comfortable. So this current scenario, I think the moment a vaccine is found, we will be back to normal. And if I were to project, say, to Jan 2021, I think we would have pretty much, forgotten about this and moved on with life as normal. Because it's not only the food. It's like if you look at the trains in Mumbai, people are jam-packed like sardines in a can. So there's nothing that can be done over there. You cannot cause social distancing in the Mumbai local train
or in the metros. So, we will have to figure some other way out of this whole thing. A restaurant may be told that you keep people apart, but how are you going to do the same social distancing in the local transport?
Right. Are you guys looking to pivot the business in any way? Are you guys thinking of other areas that you could possibly enter? I don't know. What is a person whose core business has been snatched away and he's just grounded? What do those people do?
See, I think this is the time. My personal opinion is to stay put. We have, if you have a very solid, strong business in place, you just stay put and do nothing which is rash or irrational, a knee-jerk kind of a movement. Because people are going to be hungry, they are going to have their need to socialize, they are going to have their 4 meals a day, and that is a requirement which will be there till eternity. And there are going to be restaurants and food service providers who have to meet that demand. So it is just, we need to just stay put and actually do nothing and hope that, the request that we are making from the government, which Anurag very nicely put together, those things are taken care of. And I think one more part is, the restaurant business, like input tax credit had been taken away from us. I think that's a very, very key part, which needs, these kind of supports, if the government can provide, restaurateurs will see the next 6 months to a year, and I think we will be back to normal.
Right. Thomas, are you in agreement with what Dheeraj is saying, and do you share his optimism?
I said, Mahabelly, the position that we've taken, there's a short term, there are a couple of things in the short term that we have to do, and there is a long term adaptation that we'll have to move towards. So in the short term, honestly, at least for us, like for me personally, my only priority right now is my employees. Like, we are not thinking about where the money is going to come from, how do we stay relevant. Right now, we've got a workforce that needs our help. And we're doing everything in our power to support them, because the reality for them is completely different. While this is a business decision for me and my colleagues, like, for workers, this is employment. There are livelihoods that depend on the kind of work that we do. So salary payments is exactly and the only priority right now that we've taken up. Like, that's what we think about every day. Now, how do you kind of, in the case where you have zero revenues coming in, which is instrumental in paying these salaries, the question of diversifying or pivoting into multiple revenue streams is to basically at least pay those, have enough money to pay those salaries, which is what most of the restaurants today are doing. Like, when they say, okay, I'll do delivery, I'll do takeaway, I'll probably, put together meal kits which I can send to, customers' houses. All of this is this desperate attempt to kind of keep the workforce alive, because if you don't have your employees today, your business is not going to make it to tomorrow. Like, it's that whole catch-22 kind of situation.
Let me ask you the last question before I wrap up this panel discussion, and that's really to you, Anurag. My fear is this, and please correct me if you think that the fear is misplaced, which is that if you're not going to be going to a restaurant for, it's already been over 2 months that we haven't. We're not sure when the possibility of going to a restaurant will actually occur. A month from now, 2 months from now, no idea. They say habit forming and habit breaking takes 21 days. We have already completed over 60 days in terms of not going to a restaurant, not going to a discotheque, a club, or whatever. All of these, are just a general party. So we're already now not used to going out. My fear is, do you think to rebuild this habit is going to be also a mammoth challenge?
Well, you may be technically absolutely right, but I think when you are deprived of something, there is also a pent-up demand which brings out, which is building up within you. And in a scenario which is not looking great, I will bank on the hope that everybody is missing their favorite restaurants and they'll be going there, obviously with all the safety constraints.
Of course we are.
However, just going back on the concerns that both Dheeraj and Thomas were referring to, if you look at pure arithmetic, if you are doing about 40% of your normal business, you will lose 50% of your top line as pure losses, or a little more than that. And I can give you a pure arithmetic. If you're selling 100 rupees today and your cost of sale is 30%, that means 70 rupees is coming as a margin to you, and 15 rupees is, let's say, your profit, which is the best case scenario in F&B. That means you have fixed expense of 55 rupees. Now, if 100 rupee becomes 40 rupees and 30% of that 12 rupees is your input cost, that means to mitigate 55 rupees, you have an income of 28 rupees. How does that work? So that is why it's very, very important. And I honestly want to appeal through this program of yours to every stakeholder in the ecosystem. Please come forward and let's save the industry.
Anurag, I also want you to send out a message to the government through the Leaders of Tomorrow platform in terms of what has been doled out as of now for MSMEs and SMEs, and what your expectation is to save this sector, which is a large contributor in terms of lives and livelihood.
In terms of policy, what Dheeraj earlier said, please restore input tax credit on GST. When we are looking to save every penny, this is a absolute waste of money. Number two, please give us a better e-commerce policies, which safeguards the interest of lakhs of small and large traders than a couple of dollar-driven loss-making conglomerates. Number three, declare this pandemic as a force majeure. Number four, please pay our employees through ESIC. And last and but not the least, please give us some liquidity with real moratorium. The current moratorium, which only says moratorium on principle, means nothing because interest forms probably 90% of the composition of an EMI in the early days. So these are 5 things which will at least give us a chance to live for another day and fight another day and make sure that people are back to their good habits of eating out.
Absolutely. Very well said, very well articulated. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Hopefully, the government is listening and keeping their eyes and ears close to the ground. Luck to you that this sector can hold strong and bear the kind of pain and burden that they're suffering because of this pandemic, and can come out much stronger. We as customers, hopefully will also support you in your endeavor as and when you open up. Thank you so much.